hard at work. Miller's Eatery has started preparing restaurant-quality meals for customers to heat up and enjoy at home. It's been a good stopgap for the business, helping it to stay afloat. But now Miller's is switching focus to reopening, which isn't going to be easy in a small space like this.
I think there'll probably be an initial outpour where people want to go out and firstly support the businesses that they really enjoy, and then also not have to cook for themselves. But then it's just how the businesses manage it and make people feel safe. We're not very big, so for us to get people sat down it's going to be probably further off.
While the industry is keen to get up and running, there's also a lot of anxiety. 90 restaurant chains are now lobbying the UK government for further help, including slashing VAT on food and an extension to the job retention scheme. Without these measures, some eateries say they could be facing bankruptcy.
If we were not to see any further extension of government support beyond what we've already got, it would be catastrophic for the restaurant industry. I think you would see half of all restaurants closing and struggling, and you would see 2 million jobs at risk in the restaurant sector, but also the wider supply chain.
The Coot Restaurant Group has used the lockdown to grow its takeaway business, setting up 3 delivery-only ghost kitchen facilities. It's making around 8,000 deliveries a week, but that only accounts for 40% of pre-lockdown revenues. And if dining customers don't come back, or fewer meals are served because of social distancing, well, that's bad news for the bottom line.
If we don't see ourselves getting back to normal, in that sort of end of the third, beginning of the fourth quarter, it's going to be a struggle, I think, and I think that'll be the same for the vast majority of people.
Industry insiders estimate it could be between 6 and 9 months before restaurants recover to 70% of regular revenues. Until then, some will be running at a loss. And without further government aid, parts of this industry, which is the 3rd largest employer in the UK, could go up in smoke. Natalie Powell, TRT World, London.
For more on this, Chris Roebuck joins us now from Kent in the UK. He's a visiting professor of Transformational Leadership at the Cass Business School in London. Welcome back to the program, Chris. Now, before we look at the hospitality sector, we know that Matt Hancock has just announced a further easing of restrictions, allowing around 2 million people in England to leave their homes from next month. How would you describe the easing of the lockdown under Boris Johnson's leadership?
I think certainly in terms of what Matt Hancock has announced is really, really important. From a personal perspective, my sister is one of the people that has been shielding, and they have actually been stuck in their homes, not allowed to go out at all for 3 months, effectively. So if you think about the impact of that on a person, that people bring them shopping, they have to disinfect the shopping, all of that puts stress on them. And because they have pre-existing conditions anyway, that's why they're shielding, it really ramps up the stress on them. So it's really important for this particular group that I think felt somewhat forgotten in this sort of relaxation of the lockdown for everybody else, that people are paying attention to them and they are being allowed to take exercise and go out, and that they haven't been forgotten. So it's really, really important, because it's 2.2 million people who are at significant risk.
It sure is. Now, all eyes will be on Boris Johnson on Tuesday. Many in the hospitality industry will be watching to see if he does relax that 2-metre social distancing rule, which has prevented restaurants, bars and pubs from reopening. Do you think that announcement will be made tomorrow?
Well, Boris says that he is going to make that announcement. But if we think about it, it doesn't just apply to hospitality. Social distancing applies everywhere, full stop. And there's an issue about why it's 2 metres in UK versus 1.5 metres elsewhere and 1 metre elsewhere. If we look at hospitality, the fundamental problem is how many people can you accommodate at a table if you have to have 2 metre social distancing. Now remember, 2 metre social distancing isn't 2 metres between the tables. That's 2 metres between the people at the tables. So in reality, it could be actually 3 meters between the tables. Now, if you have a small family-owned restaurant, therefore, the figures that the hospitality industry have been talking about have suggested that at 2 meters, they potentially could only occupy 15% of their potential square footage. At that level, the revenue from 15% versus the costs of employing their staff means that many of them, it would not be worth even opening. So from their perspective, if that can be reduced to 1 meter, albeit with other precautions, and that might well be masks and whatever, that then increases the potential utilization up to about 50 to 70%, depending on the layout. So from the hospitality industry's perspective, that reduction to 1 meter is a lifeline.
We know that the UK has sadly had one of the highest coronavirus death tolls in the world, and that is obviously the main rationale behind some of these tougher restrictions. Do you think the UK is ready to relax some of those rules?
I think if I look at the behaviour of people in the UK and to some degree across Europe generally, what's happening is most people are sticking to the rules in general terms. They accept that their government is giving guidance based on solid science, and that as a result of that, most people are doing what they should be doing. And I've obviously experienced this, and friends across Europe have experienced this as well. So therefore, because people have been sticking to the rules, if you look at the curve for the EU, it has come down significantly. So I think the EU, as long as we all continue to stick to the rules, will be fine. The problem is, as we have seen from other places, where people do not stick to the rules, where people ignore the science and try and open early, where simple precautions such as wearing masks become a political mantra that ignores the reality of virus spread and simple science, that's when you have problems. But I'm confident that in EU, in general terms, other than the odd hotspot here and there, provided everyone sticks to the rules, provided everybody utilizes tracing systems, etc., Europe will be in the same sort of position as the best examples have been out in Asia, where they've had minimal deaths and everything is pretty much under control.
Let's hope so. We'll see what Boris Johnson announces on Tuesday. Chris Roebuck in London, thank you as always.